A smile that changed everything. James Hartwell checked his platinum watch for the third time in 5 minutes. 7 o'clock. He had promised his PR team he would show up, shake a few hands, write a check, and disappear before the appetizers arrived. That was the deal. In his world, time was currency, and he had already spent too much of it on the 2-hour drive from San Francisco to this small town called Maplewood. The community center looked modest from the outside. Nothing like the grand ballrooms and hotel conference spaces where he usually made appearances. String lights hung across the parking lot and handmade welcome signs decorated the entrance. James sighed, straightening his tailored suit jacket as he stepped out of his black sedan. His driver nodded, understanding the silent instruction to keep the engine running. Inside, the warmth hit him immediately. Not just the temperature, but something else. Something that felt foreign and slightly uncomfortable. Laughter echoed from the main hall, mixed with the sound of acoustic guitar music. Children ran past him, chasing each other with paper butterflies. An elderly woman offered him a name tag with a bright smile, but he politely declined. Hoping to remain as invisible as possible, the encounter that changed his plan, James scanned the room, looking for whoever was in charge so he could make his donation and leave. That was when he saw her. She stood near the refreshment table, surrounded by a group of teenagers who seemed captivated by whatever story she was telling. Her laugh carried across the room, genuine and unguarded. She wore a simple blue dress, nothing expensive or designer, but she radiated something he had not seen in years. Joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. As if sensing his gaze, she turned. Their eyes met across the crowded room. She smiled at him, not the practiced smile of someone who recognized his name or his net worth. This smile reached her eyes, warm and welcoming, as if she was genuinely happy he had come. James felt something shift inside his chest. He had been planning to leave in 5 minutes. Now, his feet would not move toward the door. She excused herself from the teenagers and walked toward him, still smiling. Up close, he noticed the small details. The way her brown hair caught the soft lighting, the kindness in her hazel eyes, the small pin on her dress that read Community First. "Hi there. I am Rachel," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate every person who takes time out of their busy schedule to support what we do here." Her handshake was firm, her gratitude sincere. James realized she had no idea who he was. In a room full of locals and small business owners, his face did not appear on magazine covers or news websites. For the first time in years, he was just another guest. "James," he replied, his voice softer than usual. "I, heard about the event." "Well, we are so glad you are here. Have you eaten yet? The local restaurant donated the most amazing pasta. You have to try it," she gestured toward the buffet line with such enthusiasm that James found himself nodding, discovering a different world. Rachel walked with him toward the food, chatting easily about the community center and its programs. She explained how they provided after-school tutoring, art classes, mentorship for kids whose families struggled to make ends meet. Her passion was evident in every word. She spoke about 12-year-old Danny, who had just discovered his love for painting, and 15-year-old Jasmine, who was the first in her family hoping to attend college. James listened, truly listened, in a way he had not done in years. In his boardrooms, people talked at him, presenting reports and seeking approval. Here, Rachel simply shared stories because she loved what she did. There was no agenda, no pitch, no ask. "So what do you do, James?" Rachel asked, as they found seats at a table near the window. He hesitated. "I work in technology. Software development, mostly." It was not a lie, just an incomplete truth. He did not mention that his company had just been valued at $3 billion, or that Forbes had recently featured him in their 30 Under 40 issue. "That sounds interesting. Do you enjoy it?" The question caught him off guard. When was the last time someone asked if he enjoyed his work? People asked about profits, market share, and expansion plans. But enjoyment? That word seemed almost quaint. "I used to," he admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "Now, it is mostly just work." Rachel tilted her head, studying him with those kind eyes. That is sad. Life is too short to spend it doing something that does not bring you joy. The pull to stay the evening continued, and James found himself unable to leave. When Rachel was pulled away to help with the program presentation, he stayed in his seat. When a little girl approached him asking if he wanted to see her drawing, he said yes. When an elderly volunteer invited him to help carry chairs, he rolled up his sleeves and did so without complaint. He watched Rachel throughout the evening. She moved through the room like sunshine, giving everyone her full attention. She hugged the elderly, high-fived the kids, and listened intently to the teenagers. There was nothing performative about it. This was simply who she was. During the program, a young boy named Tommy spoke about how the center had helped him after his father passed away. He talked about feeling lost and angry until Rachel and the other mentors showed him that people cared. The room fell silent except for the sound of sniffling and quiet tears. James felt an unfamiliar tightness in his throat. Rachel spoke last, thanking everyone for their support and sharing her vision for expanding the programs. She talked about dreams and possibilities, about giving kids hope and tools to build better futures. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. James found himself clapping too, harder than he had clapped for anything in years. An unexpected confession as the crowd began to thin. James realized it was past 10 o'clock. He had stayed over 3 hours, longer than he had spent at any social event in recent memory. His phone had buzzed repeatedly with messages from his assistant, but he had ignored them all. Rachel appeared beside him, looking slightly tired but still glowing with happiness. "You are still here. I thought you might have snuck out when I was not looking." "I thought about it," James admitted with a small smile. "But I stayed." "I am glad you did. So, be honest. How painful was your first small-town charity dinner?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and felt that strange pull again. Actually, it was not painful at all. It was the best evening I have had in a very long time. Rachel's expression softened. "Really? Really?" He paused, then added quietly, "I was planning to leave after 5 minutes. I had my car running outside. But then you smiled at me, and I just could not walk away." The words hung in the air between them. Rachel's cheeks flushed slightly, but she did not look away. "Well," she said softly, "I am really glad you stayed." James, as he drove back to San Francisco hours later, James could not stop thinking about her smile. For the first time in his carefully controlled, meticulously planned life, he had absolutely no idea what would happen next. And surprisingly, that thought did not terrify him. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something he had not even known he was missing. Something real. The return he could not resist. 3 days passed, and James could not focus on anything. His executive team presented quarterly reports, but he found himself staring out the window instead of analyzing spreadsheets. His assistant scheduled back-to-back meetings, but his mind wandered to a small community center 2 hours away. His business partner asked if he was feeling well. James had no answer. On Thursday morning, he made a decision that surprised even himself. He canceled his afternoon appointments, got in his car, and drove back to Maplewood. He told himself it was about corporate social responsibility, about exploring potential partnership opportunities. But deep down, he knew the truth. He wanted to see her again. The community center looked different in daylight. The paint was chipped in places, and the playground equipment showed signs of wear. But children's laughter filled the air, and colorful artwork covered every available wall space. James parked across the street, suddenly feeling uncertain. What was he doing here? What would he even say? Before he could overthink it further, the front door opened and Rachel stepped out, carrying a box of art supplies. She wore jeans and a yellow sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. When she saw him, her face lit up with genuine surprise and pleasure. "James, what are you doing here?" She set down the box and walked toward him, smiling that smile that had haunted his thoughts for 3 days. "I was in the area," he said, then immediately regretted the obvious lie. "Actually, that is not true. I drove here specifically to see the center. And you, mostly you." Rachel's smile widened. "Well, I am glad you are being honest. Come on, I will give you the full tour." Seeing her world through new eyes, Rachel led him through the building, and James saw everything he had missed during the evening event. The reading corner with donated books, spines worn from countless young hands. The computer lab with outdated machines that volunteers kept running through sheer determination. The art room where creativity bloomed despite limited supplies. The small kitchen where Rachel and other volunteers prepared snacks for kids who often came hungry. "We do what we can with what we have," Rachel explained, her voice full of pride rather than apology. "Every kid who walks through that door gets a safe space, a warm welcome, and someone who believes in them. That matters more than fancy equipment." James noticed how the kids gravitated toward her. They hugged her, showed her their work, asked her questions about everything from homework to life. She remembered each name, each story, each struggle. A teenage girl named Brianna nervously showed Rachel a college application essay. Rachel read it carefully, offering thoughtful feedback and encouragement. "You are going to get in. Bri, I believe in you," Rachel said, squeezing the girl's shoulder. "But what if I am not smart enough?" Brianna whispered. "You are absolutely smart enough. You are also brave, hardworking, and determined. Those qualities matter just as much as test scores." Rachel's conviction was absolute, and James watched Brianna's posture straighten with renewed confidence. A moment of vulnerability later, Rachel invited James to join an afternoon art session with the younger kids. He hesitated, feeling completely out of his element, but something in her encouraging expression made him agree. Soon he found himself sitting at a small table, surrounded by 7-year-olds who handed him crayons and construction paper without any awareness that he was a billionaire CEO. A quiet boy named Christopher sat beside him, carefully drawing a house with a red door. "Are you Rachel's boyfriend?" the child asked innocently. James felt his face warm. "No, I am just visiting. You should be her boyfriend. She is really nice, and she makes the best cookies." Christopher stated this as if it was the most logical argument in the world. Rachel laughed from across the room, having overheard. "Christopher, that is not how grown-ups work." "Why not?" Christopher asked, genuinely confused. "Because it is complicated," Rachel replied. But her eyes met James's, and something unspoken passed between them as the session continued. James found himself relaxing in a way he had not experienced since childhood. The kids did not care about his accomplishments or his bank account. They just wanted someone to admire their artwork and help them reach the markers on the high shelf. It was refreshingly simple, honest, real, during a quiet moment. While the kids focused on their projects, Rachel sat beside James. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. That night at the dinner, you said work used to bring you joy. What changed?" James was quiet for a long moment, surprised by his desire to answer truthfully. "I grew up poor. Really poor. My mom worked 3 jobs, and we still barely made it. I promised myself I would never struggle like that again. So I worked obsessively, built my company, made more money than I ever dreamed possible." He paused. "But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I was doing it. Success became about numbers and competition instead of purpose. I have everything I thought I wanted, and yet I feel empty most of the time." Rachel listened without judgment, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "That must be really lonely." The simple acknowledgement of his loneliness, spoken without pity or platitudes, broke something open inside him. "It is. I cannot remember the last time I had a genuine conversation with someone who was not trying to get something from me. Until I met you. I am glad you came back, James. You seem different here. Lighter, somehow." The arrival of competition, their moment, was interrupted when the front door opened and a man walked in, carrying a bag of groceries. He was handsome in an approachable way, with sandy blonde hair and an easy smile. The kids immediately shouted his name. Tyler. Tyler. Tyler Morrison set down the groceries and was instantly surrounded by excited children. He high-fived them, asked about their week, and genuinely engaged with each one. Then his eyes found Rachel, and his whole face softened with obvious affection. "Rach, I picked up those supplies you needed for tomorrow's cooking class." He walked over and kissed her cheek casually. The gesture of someone comfortable with such familiarity. Tyler, you are a lifesaver. Thank you. Rachel smiled warmly at him, then gestured toward James. This is James Hartwell. He attended our fundraiser last week and came back to see the center. James, this is Tyler Morrison. He teaches at the elementary school and volunteers here twice a week. Tyler extended his hand, friendly but assessing. Nice to meet you, James. Any friend of Rachel is welcome here. James shook his hand, feeling an unfamiliar and unwelcome emotion rising in his chest. Jealousy. He had no claim on Rachel, no right to feel possessive. Yet watching Tyler's easy affection toward her made his jaw tighten. Tyler has been volunteering here for 5 years, Rachel explained. I honestly do not know what we would do without him. He's doing my part, Tyler said humbly, but his eyes stayed on Rachel with unmistakable warmth. Hey, are we still on for dinner tomorrow night? That new Italian place finally opened. Rachel hesitated, glancing at James before answering. Yes, definitely. I am looking forward to it. The casual mention of their dinner plans felt like a punch to James's gut. Of course, she had a life here, relationships. Maybe even something romantic with Tyler. Why would someone like Rachel be interested in a workaholic stranger who had wandered into her life 3 days ago? An evening that changes everything. Tyler stayed for another hour, and James watched the easy dynamic between him and Rachel. They had history, inside jokes, shared memories. Tyler belonged in this world. James was just visiting. As evening approached, Tyler finally left, reminding Rachel about their dinner plans. Once he was gone, Rachel turned to James. Would you like to take a walk? There is a nice path along the creek behind the center. They walked in comfortable silence at first, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The small town was peaceful, so different from the constant noise and hustle of San Francisco. Tyler seems nice, James said, trying to sound casual. Rachel smiled knowingly. He is. He has also been one of my closest friends since we were kids. We grew up on the same street. Just friends? She stopped walking and turned to face him. Are you asking if we are dating? James felt foolish but nodded. I guess I am. We went on a few dates about 2 years ago, but we realized we were better as friends. There was not that spark, you know? That connection that makes your heart race and your thoughts go sideways. She paused, her eyes searching his face. Tyler is wonderful, but he is not what I am looking for. What are you looking for? James asked quietly. Rachel thought about it, choosing her words carefully. Someone who sees beyond the surface. Someone who challenges me to grow while accepting who I am right now. Someone whose presence feels like both excitement and peace at the same time. She looked directly at him. What about you, James? What are you looking for? He stepped closer, his heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with exercise. Honestly, I did not think I was looking for anything. I had convinced myself that work was enough, that personal connections were distractions I could not afford. But then I walked into that fundraiser planning to stay 5 minutes, and a woman with a genuine smile made me question everything I thought I knew about my life. Rachel's breath caught. James. I have been back in San Francisco for 3 days, and I could not stop thinking about you. About how you make me feel like a person instead of a portfolio. About how you find joy in simple moments while I have been chasing achievements that leave me feeling hollow. He reached for her hand tentatively, relieved when she did not pull away. I do not know what I am doing here, Rachel. This is completely outside my normal life, but being near you feels right in a way nothing has felt right in years. The vulnerability in his confession hung between them. Rachel squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with emotion. I have been thinking about you too. More than I probably should, considering we barely know each other. Then let us change that. Let me take you to dinner tomorrow instead of Tyler. Let me get to know you properly. Rachel smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile that had started all of this. Okay, yes, I would like that very much. They continued walking as darkness fell, hands intertwined, talking about everything and nothing. Rachel shared her dreams of expanding the center, creating more programs, reaching more kids. James talked about his childhood, his drive to succeed, his growing realization that success meant nothing without someone to share it with. When they finally returned to the parking lot, James did not want the evening to end. Rachel seemed to feel the same, lingering by his car. "Thank you for coming back," she said softly. "And for being honest about why? Thank you for giving me a reason to come back." He gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his hand lingering on her cheek. "Can I see you this weekend? I am here Saturday morning for our weekend program. You could come help if you want. Fair warning, it involves a lot of chaos and probably some paint in your hair." James laughed, the sound surprising him with its genuineness. "That sounds perfect." As he drove away, watching Rachel wave in his rearview mirror, James realized something profound. For years he had been building an empire but forgetting to build a life. Rachel had reminded him what living actually meant. And now that he had felt it, experienced it, could not imagine going back to his empty existence. He was falling in love with her. There was no other explanation for this feeling that consumed his thoughts and rearranged his priorities. The realization should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like finally finding something he had not known he had been searching for all along. Everything was about to change. And for the first time in years, James welcomed the uncertainty. The struggle to return Monday morning hit James like cold water. His alarm went off at 5:30, pulling him from dreams of creekside walks and genuine smiles. His San Francisco apartment felt sterile and unwelcoming. All modern furniture and minimalist design with no warmth or personality. He showered, dressed in his standard suit, and headed to the office. Trying to slip back into his old routine, it did not work. His assistant, Patricia, a sharp woman in her 50s who had been with him since the company's early days, noticed immediately. She set his morning coffee on his desk and studied him with concern. "You have been different since that charity event last week. Distracted. Is everything okay?" "I am fine," James replied automatically, opening his laptop. "You've checked your phone 12 times in the last hour, which is unusual for you. You declined the Seattle expansion meeting, which you have been planning for months. And you just put sugar in your coffee when you have taken it black for the entire 5 years I have known you?" Patricia crossed her arms. "So I will ask again. Is everything okay?" James looked at his coffee cup, surprised. "I did not even realize. Talk to me, James. What is going on?" He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I met someone. In Maplewood." The woman who organized the charity event, Patricia's expression softened. "And this someone has you putting sugar in your coffee and ignoring million-dollar deals. She has me questioning whether any of this matters." He gestured around his office, at the awards on the walls and the skyline view. "I have spent 15 years building this company, Patricia. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. But I go home to an empty apartment every night, eat dinner alone, and wake up with no one to share my life with. Rachel made me realize how lonely I have been." "Rachel, that is a nice name." Patricia smiled gently. "So what are you going to do about it?" "I do not know. She lives 2 hours away in a completely different world. Her life revolves around community service and helping kids. Mine revolves around board meetings and profit margins. How do I bridge that gap? Maybe you start by figuring out what you actually want. Not what you think you should want, but what would genuinely make you happy." Patricia headed toward the door, then paused. "And James? Life is too short to let fear make your decisions for you." The crisis that brings him back, James tried to focus on work throughout the week with limited success. He went through the motions, attended meetings, approved projects, but his heart was not in it. Every evening, he texted with Rachel. She shared stories about the kids, sent photos of art projects, and smiling faces. He told her about his day. Those corporate dealings seemed dull in comparison to her meaningful work. On Thursday afternoon, his phone rang. Rachel's name appeared on the screen, and he answered immediately, stepping away from a strategy session. "Rachel? Is everything okay?" Her voice sounded strained, upset. "James, I am sorry to bother you at work, but I needed to talk to someone, and you just came to mind." Closing. James felt anger surge through him, protective and fierce. "Who is the buyer?" "Some development company called Westbrook Properties. They offered the owner twice the property value, and he took it. I cannot blame him, but I do not know what we are going to do. We barely have enough funding to operate, let alone relocate. Give me until tomorrow, James said decisively. Do not tell anyone about this yet. I am going to make some calls. James, what are you going to do? What I should have done weeks ago. I am going to help. He hung up and immediately called his legal team, then his real estate contacts, then his financial advisors. By midnight, he had a complete picture of the situation and a plan forming. By dawn Friday, he was in his car driving to Maplewood, Patricia's words echoing in his head about figuring out what he actually wanted. He knew what he wanted. He wanted Rachel. He wanted to be part of something meaningful. He wanted to stop living a half-life and start actually living. Revelation and Declaration James arrived at the community center at 8 in the morning. Rachel's car was already there, along with Tyler's truck. He found them in the office, surrounded by paperwork and looking exhausted. Rachel stood quickly, surprise and relief flooding her face. What are you doing here? I told you I would help. He set his briefcase on the desk. I spent last night looking into Westbrook Properties and the sale. I have a proposal if you will hear me out. Tyler frowned. What kind of proposal? James pulled out a folder containing documents his lawyers had prepared. First, full transparency. My company, Hartwell Technologies, is worth $3 billion. I am not just a software developer. I am the founder and CEO. Rachel's eyes widened. You are James Hartwell. The James Hartwell. I saw you on the cover of a business magazine at the grocery store last month. I did not tell you because it was refreshing to be treated like a normal person rather than a bank account. He opened the folder. I contacted Westbrook Properties last night. They are willing to sell me the property for triple what they paid, which I am prepared to do. But I have a better idea. There is a larger building 3 blocks from here that just went on the market. It is twice the size of this place, with proper facilities, updated equipment, and room for expansion. I want to buy it and transfer ownership to the community center. Rachel stared at him. James, that must cost millions. We could never pay you back. I do not want you to pay me back. I want to invest in something that matters. These kids, this program, what you do here is more important than another tech acquisition or stock portfolio. He pulled out additional documents. I also want to establish an endowment fund that will cover operating costs for the next 20 years, minimum. You will have financial stability to expand programs, hire staff, and reach more children. Tyler crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. Why? What do you get out of this? James looked directly at Rachel. I get to be part of something real. I get to support work that changes lives instead of just accumulating wealth. And I get to help someone who showed me what actually matters in life. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. James, this is too much. It is not nearly enough. He stepped closer to her. Rachel, I have been miserable for years without even realizing it. Then I spent one evening with you, and I remembered what happiness feels like. You gave me that gift. Let me give something back. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, then sighed. Rachel, can I talk to you privately for a moment? They stepped into the hallway, and James could hear their muffled voices. When they returned, Tyler looked resigned, but not angry. I told Rachel something I should have said a long time ago, Tyler began. I told her that I am still in love with her, that I have been since we were teenagers, and watching her with someone else has been difficult. He glanced at James. But I also told her that she deserves to be with someone who makes her light up the way you do. I have known her my whole life, and I have never seen her this happy. Rachel had tears streaming down her face now. Tyler, you are one of my best friends. I love you, but not in that way. I am so sorry. Tyler smiled sadly. I know. I have known for a long time. I just needed to say it out loud so I could move forward. He looked at James. You better treat her right, billionaire. She is the best person I know. I know she is, James replied sincerely, and I promise I will. Tyler nodded, then left, closing the door behind him. Rachel covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed. James gently pulled her hands away, holding them in his. Rachel, look at me. She met his eyes, vulnerable and hopeful. Hey, do not have all the answers about how this works, he continued. I live in San Francisco. You live here? Our worlds are completely different. But I do know that I have never felt this way about anyone. You make me want to be better, to do better, to actually live instead of just existing. I am falling in love with you, and I think you might be falling for me too. I am, Rachel whispered. I have been trying to convince myself it is too fast, too complicated, but I cannot help it. When I am with you, everything feels right, and let us figure out the logistics later. Right now, just tell me you will give this a chance. Give us a chance. Rachel laughed through her tears. You are crazy. You know that, right? You barely know me. I know enough. I know you have the biggest heart of anyone I have ever met. I know you find joy in simple moments. I know you believe in people when no one else does. I know that being near you feels like coming home. Rick cupped her face gently. That is enough for me. She rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. James wrapped his arms around her, feeling pieces of himself falling into place. 6 months later, full circle, the new Maplewood Community Center opened on a Saturday afternoon in late spring. The building gleamed with fresh paint. The playground equipment sparkled in the sunshine, and the spacious classrooms buzzed with activity. Over 200 people attended the grand opening, including local officials, families, and the media. But James only had eyes for Rachel. She stood at the podium, radiant in a sundress, thanking everyone who had made the expansion possible. She talked about the kids they served, the programs they offered, and the dreams they were building together. She did not mention that James had funded everything. Instead, she credited the community's support and dedication. James watched from the side, feeling pride swell in his chest. In the past 6 months, his life had transformed completely. He had restructured his company, promoting his business partner to CEO, while he took a reduced role that allowed remote work. He had bought a house in Maplewood, splitting his time between there and San Francisco. He had become a regular volunteer at the center, learning that he had a surprising talent for teaching kids basic coding skills. Most importantly, he had learned what it meant to be truly happy. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled and children explored their new space, James found Rachel admiring the art room. She was alone for the first time all day. Hey, he said softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. You did it. This place is incredible. She leaned back against him. We did it. This was your dream too. My only dream is you. He kissed her temple, then reached into his pocket, his heart pounding. Actually, speaking of dreams, I have a question for you. Rachel turned in his arms, and her eyes widened when she saw the velvet box in his hand.
6 months ago.
I walked into a charity dinner planning to stay 5 minutes, James began, his voice thick with emotion. I was going to write a check and leave because I had convinced myself that was all life required of me. Obligation, duty, success measured in dollars rather than moments. But then you smiled at me and everything changed. He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. You taught me that real wealth is not in bank accounts but in connections, not in achievements but in joy. Not in building empires, but in building a life worth living. Rachel Bennett, you are my life. You are my home. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she nodded. Yes, yes, of course yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her deeply, pouring all his love and gratitude into that moment. Around them, the community center hummed with life and laughter, filled with the children whose futures burned brighter because of Rachel's dedication and James's support. Christopher, the 7-year-old from the art session months ago, ran up to them. Does this mean you are Rachel's boyfriend now? James laughed, keeping his arm around Rachel. Actually, it means I am going to be her husband. Christopher considered this seriously, then nodded. Good, I told you she makes the best cookies. As the celebration continued around them, James held Rachel close. Watching the sunset paint the sky through the large windows, he thought about the man he used to be, lonely and lost despite all his success. That man had planned to stay 5 minutes at a charity event and leave unchanged, but Rachel had changed everything. With one genuine smile, she had shown him what life could be, what love felt like, what home meant, He had come intending to give a donation and disappear. Instead, he had found the one thing his money could never buy: a reason to stay, not for 5 minutes, but for a lifetime.